Hi. I believe it's fair to say that everyone is using AI to prep their job interviews these days. And while I do not necessarily agree it's a positive trend with great success to candidates, this will bias interviewers towards assuming that maybe you could be an AI candidate. Right? In the same way that most candidates don't take interviews seriously, and that's why the interviewer is likely to be on the idea that you'll have to earn it, to earn their trust, to really go to extreme lengths to make them believe that you are who you say you are. The same way you'd want to go a step further beyond to differentiate yourself from AI candidates. And in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 methods to achieve these goals, right? The first method I'd like to share with you would be for candidates who can interview well already. Okay, so this would be on the assumption that AI answers are so convincing because they are longer. Okay, if you'll ask ChatGPT to provide you with sample answers or to reward your answers, you'll notice they tend to be on the longer side. So what if instead of providing long answers, you would focus on providing short, extremely short and concise interview answers on the reasoning that you would want to start a conversation with your interviewer to invite them to ask you a ton of follow-up and challenge questions, right? Remember I said in the beginning, this method is for candidates who can already interview pretty well, people with good listening skills, right? Why would this be recommended primarily for people with great listening skills in job interviews? Well, because, providing short answers has also a risk, and the risk is you can be called as superficial while answering interview questions. So that's why finding the right balance between what means short answers without sounding superficial, and long answers without sounding reward with AI is key here, right? Or if they say, hey, your answers are too short, obviously you should adjust your performance accordingly, right? But long story short, if, for instance, you use such an approach of short answers and invite for follow-up and challenge questions, you will come across as a human being for sure, right? And it's actually a technique that's used primarily for sales roles, right? Salespeople usually interview better than average because, the job is one such where you have to have great listening skills, right? So this was method number 1. If this doesn't work, the method number 2. Method number 2 refers to outsmarting, so to speak, the AI candidate by evolving from the traditional templates to answer interview questions. And I'm referring to the STAR format primarily here. So for example, instead of providing your answers in the STAR format, what if you reversed the STAR format? What if you started with the results as a pitch, as an introduction to your answer, and then provide, the challenges and the actions you took for these results, right? The idea here would be to still provide, these long, convincing first answers, which tend, in my experience, to correlate with better interview outcomes for most candidates, but still to differentiate yourself from the AI with these reverse STAR format. Now some of you might say, okay, then, but the AI can reward the STAR answers too. Well, yes, in fact, I provide this as an option in my training program if you want to try it out. But the point is that it's not the best candidates who use AI to reward their answers, and those types of candidates would extremely rarely be interested in things such as reversing the STAR format and stuff like that. They would be more on the lines of, hey, AI, give me an answer, reward it using the STAR format, eventually focus on some learning and that kind of stuff, right? So if you evolve from these traditional templates, chances are you're going to very much come across as a human being, and a smart human being first and foremost, right? Now, some interviewers will prefer familiar approaches, so to speak, the STAR format. But still, I found that people who score well on clarity of thought, and if you can communicate your answers clearly in reverse STAR format, I've had some great results with people who were able to deliver their stories like this, right? This was the second method. And the third thing you could do if you want to seal the deal, so to speak, on the fact that you're not an AI candidate, you could also consider sharing your story bank with your interviewers. Could be before, during, or even after your job interview, because this is the easiest way to check if you've rewarded your answers using AI, right? So that's the ultimate proof you've done this. And the other very great reason to consider sharing your story bank with them is that very few candidates can pride themselves with a story bank they can share with others. I know this because I've seen thousands of story banks, and I know people. When people tend to be skeptical of sharing their stories with me, it's almost always because there's some problem in there. Either they're rewarded with AI, either they're not really good stories, clarity of thought and stuff, they're unintelligible and stuff like that, right? So sharing your story bank with your interviewers can also be a great way to differentiate yourself from other candidates, because ultimately this is how the best candidates land job offers. Okay, so I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.